Hello everyone, this is TVthePunisher here. Welcome to the first ever JOJO's Bizarre Adventure discussion. Now, the question I want to give to you today is, what makes up a JOJO? When talking about what makes a JOJO, we're not talking about what makes up being a Joestar. But what qualities makes up being a protagonist of a part of the story of JOJO's Bizarre Adventure. When you think about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you think about all the confusing stands, all the dead dogs, the stand barrages, the poses, the references, the bizarre outfits, and especially the epic fights. Sometimes, admittedly, it's hard to lose sight of the main characters. When going through the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure community for the first time, one thing became apparent to me. The community and the fans had one impression on each main character. I think the one question no one has truly asked themselves is what makes up a JoJo that can even connect different universes. In this video essay, I have come up with 8 things that makes up a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure protagonist, from the kind-hearted gentleman Jonathan Joestar to the greedy young drug dealer JoJo Joestar. To begin this discussion, we must start at the beginning. Phantom Blood. You might be thinking, oh, Davinator 12, you're gonna start talking about Jonathan first. Haha, guess what? I'm not. You know who I am gonna talk about though? George Joestar the First. You know, the one everyone forgets about. When talking about Phantom Blood, so many people think that the story is mid, simple, slow. But I think that's why Toshiyuki Araki, or Hirohiko Araki, intended when first writing JoJo's. That's why he's such a genius. Think about it. Without the introduction of George Joestar I, we would not even have the foundation that is Jonathan Joestar for the whole franchise. He is the base for the base. George Joestar I is technically the ingredients you need before even considering making the masterpiece of a cake that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This series is on the man's shoulders, not Jonathan's. Now, why do I say this? Well, I say this because George Joestar I, Dario Brando, and Dario's wife that we see in the beginning are technically the figurative holy trinity for JoJo's franchise. Something I might talk about in another video. George Joestar is an example for the audience on what qualities we should be looking for in a JoJo, even though he was not a JoJo himself. He shows us 6 of the 8 qualities it takes to be considered a JoJo. One must be born with Joestar blood. One must have the ability to move others, the ability to cause change, to protect, to love, to represent a part of humanity, have the ability to leave and accept a legacy. And there are 2 more qualities, but we will talk about them later. We see George Joestar the first in the story, because if you think about it, it's about his family and his family alone. Even if you go into the Steel Ball Run universe, we can see that in the story, it's still technically about George Joestar's the first descendants, even though it's an alternate universe version of him and no one else's. We see through the examples of Giorno and Josuke from Part 8, we can see no matter what the shenanigans transpired are for their existence, if they were born with Joestar blood, and they have the other 7 qualities, they may be granted the experience to become a JoJo. We will talk about the 3 brothers from Part 6 later, and why they weren't worthy to become JoJos. By the way, if you're asking, no, we will not be talking about Pucci or Weather Report, because they did not have Joestar blood when they were born. We will not talk about Nicholas Joestar, alternate universe George Joestar II, alternate universe Joseph's siblings. We will not talk about Kei Nijimura, or Holly Joestar, or alternate universe Holly Joestar, Barbara Ann Joestar, or Dragona Joestar, because none of these descendants from either Georges from either universe were able to meet all the criteria to become a JOJO in their family line. George Joestar I also showed us that a JOJO must be able to move others, just like he did with the police officer captain and even Speedwagon, while he was dying. He also showed us that JOJOs must be able to cause change, just like his death did, resulting change not only in the story, but change in the family he had with his son. And at the same time, he protected something to be able to love it. George's death also helped him represent a part of humanity being sacrificed. And lastly, he showed us that a JOJO must be able to have the ability to leave a legacy. While Joseph, Jotaro, Josuke Part 4, and Jolene showed us that a JOJO must have the ability to accept that legacy, or a legacy. I am going to quickly explain what each part of humanity each JOJO represents, quickly, or this video will be too long, and what they protect to love, just how George Joestar I protected his son, Jonathan, to love him in his dying moments. Phantom Blood. Jonathan represents the humility of humanity, and how much we can care for others even through violence. We see this even in his final moments, cradling Dio's head, loving his brother to the very end. He protected people from Dio to love his life, even though it was a tragic one. Battle Tendency. Joseph represents the unpredictability of humanity and how creative humankind can be to figure out solutions to problems compared to any other creature. Think about it. He protected the world from the ultimate being cars. Technically, if you think about it, an animal, to love his family. Stardust Crusaders. Jotaro represents the power of humanity and how powerful humans can become to overcome adversity shown throughout our history. He protected people from Dio to love his mother. Josuke Part 4 represents the community of humanity and how we can all live together and help each other when faced with trouble. He protected his town from Kira to love peace. Jonah represents the dreams of humanity and how all people have dreams and how we fight to achieve them with all our might. He protected his ambitions from Diablo. Why? To love his dream. Jolene represents the freedom of humanity and how humanity longs to be free and how we will fight with our lives to be free. She protected Emporio from Pucci to love a bright future, even though she wouldn't be part of it. Johnny represents the change in humanity and how humans can change themselves for the worst or for the better. He protected himself from Valentine to love himself. Josuke Part 8 represents the individual in humanity and how every person must find themselves to accept themselves. He protected his memories from Toru to love others. Now finally, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Steel Ball Run, JoJolion, now JoJo Lands. The protagonist Jodio Joestar represents the life in humanity and how we all strive to live regardless of how we do it. At this current time, JoJo Lands has not finished, but I predict he will protect his wealth to love the future. All JoJos combined, I believe, are supposed to represent the humility, the unpredictability, the power, the community, the dreams, the freedom, the change, the individual and life of humanity. As Araki stated, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a celebration of humanity. So my question is, why aren't we celebrating? Okay. Now you're probably saying, oh, this is so boring, Davinator 12. Now, we're almost at the end. I want to talk about 4 people still. George Joestar II and the 3 brothers of Giorno Giovanna from part 6. The only reason none of these characters could have become JoJo's is because George Joestar II did not leave or accept the legacy. He died prematurely. He did not even accept Hamon from his father. Now, none of the 3 brothers, they couldn't have become JoJo's for the sole reason that they could not move others or create change. It was them themselves that were moved. It was only once they got in contact with Pucci in which they found a reason to live and to love. But they were still not able to protect that to love. They were not able to meet their criteria, just like the other Joestar descendants I mentioned before. Now, to end this video, I will reveal the last 2 important criteria that makes up a JoJo. They must have a star-shaped birthmark, introduced in part 3, and they must be quirky in some way. And don't you say Jonathan isn't quirky. When was the last time you met someone like Jonathan Joestar in your life? Huh? Exactly. Point proven. Anyway, here are the 8 things that make up a JoJo. They must 1. Have a star-shaped birthmark. 2. Been born with Joestar blood. 3. The ability to move others. 4. The ability to cause change. 5. To protect, to love. 6. Represent a part of humanity. 7. The ability to leave and accept a legacy. And 8. They must be quirky. Now, 6 things that don't make up a JoJo. These are some things that I also found interesting on what doesn't make up a JoJo. 1. Age. 2. Sex. 3. Upbringing. 4. Ambitions. 5. Physical appearance. 6. Personality. And 7. Your mom!